Well, the settlement declaration reverses the U.S. legal position since 1978, known as the Hansel Memorandum. It said civilian settlements on occupied territories is inconsistent with international law. In 2017, Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and a year later opened an embassy there. Washington's policy had previously been that Jerusalem's status was to be decided in a peace process. And in March, Trump recognized Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights from Syria in a boost for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's campaign for a second term in power. Well, let's bring in Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bishara. He is joining us live from London. And so that's some of the context, Marwan, on this administration, this president's determination to reframe US policy towards the conflict. But has he green-lighted the one behaviour on the part of Israel? There are many behaviours, but settlement activity that has most undermined the chances of a political settlement?
Well, yes, I think this is basically the last pillar of the so-called deal of the century that we were warned or promised for a couple of years now that it's going to come out. And I guess there's no point for anyone waiting for the official announcement of that deal of the century, because as you just stated in your report, already the main issues that were supposed to come out in terms of US position on the solution for Israel-Palestine, the Trump administration is clearly and utterly on the side of the extremist government in Israel on the question of Jerusalem, on the question of the Palestinian refugees, and on the question of the settlements and the borders. So all in all now, we have a comprehensive US approach to Israel-Palestine where the United States is 100% on the side of the Netanyahu government and completely rejecting every single principle that the peace process stood on or the Palestinian Authority advocates. And now it's probably in the Palestinians' court to decide what to do next.
What are their options, Marwan?
Well, certainly the two-state solution that we've been saying for a while now is no longer viable. It is certainly not viable anymore. When Secretary of State Jim Kerry was saying earlier that this was the last chance, and that was 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, for a two-state solution, that the window is closing, well, the window is certainly closed, and now Israel has a green light to expand even more the settlement building. With the end of the two-state solution, there are two possible alternatives. One is apartheid, meaning Israelis and Israeli Jewish settlers will continue to have an upper hand and their own network of roads and systems and industrial zones and so on and so forth, a superior one, closed one, to the Palestinians, and an inferior one where Palestinians live, although indigenous population, but in a disadvantaged position under Israeli control. Many think apartheid is not really much of a permanent solution in the 21st century. So the other alternative would be the one-state reality, meaning with a maximum distance of some 6 miles between any Israeli and any Palestinian, and with the expansion of the settlements making that proximity even closer, the one-state reality today is as such that needs to be recognized by the Israelis and by the Americans, and perhaps advocated for by the Palestinians. And it seems that might be an ideal situation, meaning Jews, Palestinians, Muslims and Christians living all together equally under the law of the land of an Israel-Palestine, whereby Palestinians and Israelis have a right to self-determination, have the right for democratic elections, and have the right for sovereignty and security. I guess that kind of a solution might be fair for everyone, and I think it would be supported by much of the international community. The question is, will the rightist government in Israel accept it? It doesn't seem like it, at least at this point in time.
And Marwan, while this is about the US policy towards Israel and Palestine, domestic politics are always at the top of Trump's agenda. How much does, legalizing Israeli settlements play with his pro-Israeli constituencies, especially evangelicals, as he campaigns for re-election?
I think it's important to note here, because there's a bit of a misunderstanding around the world about the question of the Israel lobby. It's interesting that during the Trump administration, the Israel lobby is mostly un-Jewish, not Jewish. Most of the Jews in the United States have supported and voted for the Democratic Party for many years. And over the last election, I think 70% of American Jews voted for the Democratic Party. In fact, more Jews voted for Obama and Clinton than they did for Prime Minister Netanyahu. So what we have today is an extremist Zionist elite in the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States, and maybe in the rest of the country, as well as an extremist evangelical elite, together making up the foreign policy of the United States in Israel, Palestine, and in fact, throughout the Middle East. So it is that extremist right-wing evangelical as well as extremist Zionist group that is also, big donors to the Trump administration that are dictating policy. Fortunately, most of American Jewry is against this kind of policy. Most of American Jewry might end up, in the end of the day, to be the bridge for a better, more rational, more peaceful U.S. policy towards the Middle East. But that will take a change of presidency, of course.
Marwan, thank you as always for your analysis. Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara, live in London. Thank you.